Welcome back to the Dungeon Master's Block, the place where we come to talk about the Dungeon Master, the most important person in the game. With every conversation, we hope to inspire as many as possible to keep on Dungeon Mastering.
And I'm one of your hosts, DM Neal, aka Jote Maniac, and today Derek and I are sitting down with Maxwell Zener, and we are going to be talking about making some character voices. I feel like talking about is a ridiculous understatement because Maxwell is going to take Derek and I to task, and you are going to walk away with some true, genuine, actionable things that you can do to make your character voices better. I am abysmal at it in terms of keeping up with character voices, but by the end of this episode, I am definitely better than I was before the episode. So hopefully you will feel exactly the same. And shout out to Maxwell for all the info and just the joy and fun that we had making this episode. We had a little bit of audio issues partway through. You may or may not notice them, but regardless, the episode's just a little later coming out because this is one of the first times in a long time that we're clocking over an hour and 20 minutes. So I hope you enjoy, but that's more than enough for me. Let's head to the meat.
I'm starving. We ain't had nothing but maggoty bread for 3 stinking days.
Why can't we have some meat?
The plate meat's back on the menu, boys.
And today, for the meat, we are very excited to introduce our guest, Maxwell Zener, who is a professionally trained actor with over 30 years of experience bringing stories to life on stage, on screen, and in audio, as well as creating some best-selling products on the DM's Guild. Maxwell, thanks so much for coming to talk to us on the DM's Block today.
I'm so happy to be here. It's nice to meet you guys.
I want to say we now have a mutual friend, so we got connected. I feel like we're gonna probably get some Infinity Stones here, but the first question we're gonna toss out is: can you tell us a little bit about yourself that you think our listeners would be interested in?
Well, let's see. I mean, I live in New York City. I'm a recent empty nester with my kid off to college. We've got a brand new dog who's here with me and making noise. I hope it doesn't make noise too much.
I can't hear it. You're good.
Yeah. And I started acting and playing D&D at kind of roughly the same point in my life. I was about 9 years old, and there was a knock on my front door, and I opened the door, and it was my best friend, and he was holding the red box. And he was like, I found this at a hobby store. You want to see what it is? I was like, yeah. And we opened it up and we dived in. And I don't think I've ever climbed out of that box. I would set up a tent in my parents' backyard and go out there and spend the night with, a sleeping bag and a flashlight and those old D&D adventures and look at the art and imagine what it would be to play through them. It just fired my imagination so much when I was a kid. And I think it was 1 year later when a school teacher who also was a repertory member of a community theater was like, I think this acting thing would do Max a world of good, and convinced my parents to get me into it. And I didn't look back from that either.
That's awesome. I recently saw on a YouTube channel called Black Magic Craft where he recently found at a yard sale a whole bunch of older D&D stuff. And there's something to be said about this weird level of bridging nostalgia because I started in second edition, but there's something about the stuff before I ever played that still gives me a weird hit of nostalgia for something I didn't experience.
Yeah.
So I always think about getting inspired by those same materials. So I've also, in the pursuit of that, purchased things that are way beyond what I would have experienced, and then try and learn from those things.
Yeah.
Do you remember some of the other ones, the early ones? Because I always remember the Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh. So the U series, is always what stands out is my earliest D&D memory.
Yeah. No, I didn't play that one, but I played the B series. What did it play? Oh, the Temple of Elemental Evil, long campaign, walking through that monster of an adventure. Against the Giants. I forget which letter that was, probably G for Giants. Played through that one. I remember as a kid, that one was hard because we started with mid-level adventurers who, gotten all the loot and done all the things, and then we get captured and all of our stuff is taken away from us at the beginning of the adventure. And I got so mad. That was my first experience as a player of like having to actively seek out a more pro-social way to play.
Yeah, the classic take all your players stuff can either go well or go terribly, but I haven't heard a lot of people say they enjoy it. So yeah, it's funny how that's kind of like such a common trope. Every new DM is like, oh, you know what's a good idea is just to take everyone's stuff. Funny how that happens.
As a DM, I've only done that to my players once. And I made it pretty clear that they were probably going to get their stuff back.
A good way to kind of set the expectations. So can you tell us what you are currently working on, if anything, that that the listeners might be interested in?
Oh, sure. Well, the stuff I can talk about is I've got 2 audiobooks coming up that I'm working on. One is book 5 of an ongoing sort of pulpy horror series called Genosqua, which kind of plays out like a 1980s like action horror B-movie. It is so much fun. It's cops and soldiers in the woods versus Bigfoot. It is very much, monster in the dark, scary things happening, one by one, people getting picked off. It's great. It's so much fun. I've got that coming up. And then after that, there's an author that I work with who has 2 different series that I've narrated. One is a supernatural mystery series called Finders Inc., which is about this, one of the guys in this sort of band of misfits is psychic and can connect to people who are lost. And that's sort of how they, solve cases that other people can't solve. He also writes this urban fantasy series called Family Pack, which is a bunch of sort of ne'er-do-well people who really can't figure their lives out very well, who also happen to be werewolves. And he's writing a novel crossing these 2 over.
Oh, wow.
And I've got that coming up, and that's going to be a lot of fun. I'll say I'm a little interested in how all of the characters from all of these worlds are going to live and play together. I'm very glad I keep copious notes about these characters because that's going to be exciting.
I've always thought about that from a narration perspective, because I listen to tons of audiobooks about like how much prep you would have to do in order to, voice correctly in specific situations where there's foreshadowing or where people know things or the listener knows things that characters don't, or just all that kind of interaction. So that's it is, kind of DM like, I guess, in the way you have to think about it. But as a listener of a lot of audiobooks, I've thought about that before. So it's good to know that it is something that you're doing behind the scenes.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think there's any way to responsibly narrate an audiobook without doing some prep work, without reading it ahead of time and understanding what's going on and who the people are and what the story beats are and where it's going. I mean, imagine trying to tell a joke when you don't know what the punchline is.
Okay, so hold on. No.
You're not going to be very successful.
Okay, this is still really funny. I could do it. Okay, I got a great knock joke. Okay, you start.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
You are.
This is still very funny.
No, but you knew the punchline.
No,
you knew the joke before you started it.
But the other thing I think of is like, just so we're clear, listeners, we've already started into the topic at hand because everything you're starting to say is applicable to what we're gonna be talking about. So let me hit you with a surprise question real quick that is right in the same realm. Is there a voice that you've used for an NPC that you were not confident in at all and it just landed? Because I think about that with like me creating just NPCs in general. I wonder if that same thing happens for you, because I don't do a lot of voices personally. So I'm just as excited. I'm an active listener for this episode more than most of the episodes we do, just because I'm not great at voices or rather maintaining them. And so for me, I wonder, like, does that same thing happen where if I create this NPC, I'm like, no, and then I'm like, okay, cool. Mug Merch the Goblin is the greatest thing that I've ever made. And I thought he was going to die. So I wonder if there's ever been like a voice that you were thinking like, oh, there's no way. And then it's just becomes the thing that you end up having to do over and over.
Yes, I absolutely can think of one. I was DMing a short series of adventures, like a short 4-shot kind of campaign. And at the center of this campaign was a dragon and a bunch of its sort of kobold minions. For whatever reason, I hadn't put a lot of thought into how I was going to voice the kobolds. Why I didn't think about that, I don't know, but I just didn't. And they meet the first kobold. And I was like, oh no, I've got to get this now. And later on, when I'm sort of walking through, I think how what my process is for thinking about character voices, I can dig into this in more depth. But
I sort of found this guy, and this sort of became the generic kobold voice. I think his name might have been Squish. I don't really remember his name. I'm going to call him Squish. And he was just this guy. He was very, please don't hurt me kind of guy.
And players loved it. And I kept going with it. And I was lucky enough that I did it in a way that didn't hurt, didn't cause me any stress. I think if you're reaching for one of those more extreme voices, you got to be super careful with that. Because if that was hard on my voice and I had to do him for hours at a stretch, I'd lose my voice. So luckily, he lived in an okay space for me.
That's funny that you mentioned like the voice thing. I was thinking of another audiobook, The Stars, My Destination. It's an Alfred Bester book.
I don't know that one. I'm going to look that one up right now while we're talking.
It's like a classic sci-fi book, very much inspired by The Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh, fun.
And the main character, no spoilers, like this is just kind of like the intro point, but he is stuck on this ship in the middle of space, and another ship drives by and like scans his ship, but then doesn't pick him up. And he's trying to figure out, like, they should have come and picked me up. And he was like barely surviving.
Mm-hmm.
And after that ship comes, scans him, he's trying to send like every help signal he can, and they leave him. He decides then that he's going to take revenge on whoever that was, who like either gave the order or who like was on the ship, the captain of the ship who just left him in space.
Yeah.
Anyway, the main character, so he speaks like, in the beginning, he speaks this, I don't remember what they call it, but it's just like really rough spacer kind of accent. And I just could not imagine how hard that would be on the voice. Like I tried to imitate it, and I was like, how did he do this for, the first third of the book? It's crazy that people would commit to voices like that are so hard.
Yeah. And that is a skill, right? Like there are ways to produce a sound like that doesn't destroy your voice. And I know some of them, I don't know all of them. Like there's this thing that a lot of like heavy metal singers can do, where they get that like kind of voice that if I were to do it, I just like, it would be bad. Like I'd be lying in a bleeding puddle within 2 minutes, and they can do it for hours a night and they're fine. But you have to learn to do it. It's a skill, and they're not pushing through pain. They found a way to do it without pain. That's one of the things that I wouldn't stress. I couldn't stress enough for DMs or players playing around and finding voices is don't do anything that causes you pain. Because it might sound fun for 10 seconds, but then if you have to do it for hours at a time, you're going to hurt yourself.
Yeah. Most metal artists, if you watch their trajectory through their career, they oddly enough don't do as much screaming album to album. Surprise.
Yeah.
Or they start pitching their songs down different keys because they can't sing that high anymore. Yeah. There's a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
The other question, well, the first question we have is, and we always ask it this way, is like, what about this topic like draws you to it? I mean, there's some obvious reasons, but like helping people do better character voices, I think is a better way to structure that question.
Yeah.
Is like what draws you to help people do this?
Well, I mean, there's two big things. One is that people can get so intimidated by this, and I don't think people have to be. The other thing is I think people often don't understand how a character voice gets created, like what those skills are that professional voice actors are doing when we create characters. A lot of people are just sort of hearing the end result and trying to create it instead of going through the creation process that gets to the result. And the creation process, it's not that hard. But if all you're doing is listening to a voice and saying like, oh, I want to learn how to do that voice, you're entering it like step 13 or 14 of a process. I like to set the set people straight and bust up some myths about how to do this.
My first follow-up question is just like when to put in that kind of time and work. Is it mostly just when you have a character you're introducing that's going to play a prominent role that you would go through that much work and effort to kind of, map out who they are, their motivations, or whatever it might be before you get to the end result? When they're talking to just one-off people that you don't think they will, interact with in the future, is it just kind of like, okay, I'm going to pick something from my repertoire?
There's really a couple answers to this. And I think the most important answer is that you as the DM, do what's fun. If you want to sit around and play with different NPC voices for 2 or 3 hours and sort of develop your set of NPCs, and that's fun, go for it. But if you have a limited amount of prep time and it's more, you got to spend more time on, which, my players might do one of 7 things, and I got to plan out the 7 things they're going to do. And I got to be ready for that. And I only have 3 hours to get this adventure ready. Then maybe that wouldn't be fun and you wouldn't have to do it. I think it's totally okay to come up with stuff on the fly. I come up with stuff on the fly all the time. Or if you want to sit around and play and really lock those voices in ahead of time, if that's what's fun for you, you should do that. Because at the end of the day, that's why we're here, right? We gather around a table to have fun with our friends. And that's the thing that matters most. And if it would increase your fun to put in the time crafting these voices, do it. And if you don't want to do that, if you'd rather just come up with some quick and dirty stuff on the fly, do that too.
One of the things I think about is the way I first started learning to draw is by mimicking things. And so I think that same thing in doing this is mimicry, obviously, and then figuring out okay, what can I truly mimic with my voice in comparison to other things? How close can I get to this? How close can I get to that? But ultimately, if I don't do more about learning to draw, then that's it. I'm just copying things one to one, and I can still be really, really good at that, and I can do iterations. But at no point, I guess, did I find, in that scenario, at no point would I have found my own drawing style. So if we don't deconstruct the process a little bit, then at no point am I finding out how I'm concluding to get to my own new voices. I think is kind of what is that what you're driving at?
Yeah, a little bit, but it's also, I think what I mean is that making voices is a skill. It's an athletic skill, right? It's muscles. Everything we're doing when we make voices are muscle. Your lips, muscles move them around. Your cheeks, your jaw, muscles. Your tongue, huge muscle with and just half a millimeter different position on your tongue, you're making a different sound. So you need exquisite control of your tongue. Your soft palate, muscles lift that up or push that down. The back of your throat, your larynx moving that up. It's all muscles. And even the accessory muscles around your neck and on the top of your head and in your core, those all get involved. The professional voice actors who do streaming shows, right? Those are the all-pro professional athletes of voice acting. And there are some people who are more naturally athletically gifted, and there are other people who aren't so naturally athletically gifted, right? If you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh man, I am a horrible mimic. I can't do impersonations. I'm not very good at copying noises. I'll never get this. That's not true. They're skills. And like any skill, it gets better with practice. I'm a terrible baseball player. I'm a horrible baseball player. We go out, with our friends into the park to throw around a baseball, try to hit it. It's bad. But that doesn't mean that there aren't skills you can learn about how to catch a ball, how to throw a ball, how to hit a ball. And it also doesn't mean if I'm not hitting a home run like Aaron Judge or I'm not throwing a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, that doesn't mean that I can't have fun with my friends in the park. And it doesn't mean my friends won't have fun playing with me. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
You sit down with your friends, you sit down with friends at the table, don't put that expectation on yourself that you have to sound like a professional voice actor in a streaming show. You don't have to any more than I have to hit a 400-foot home run when I'm playing softball with my buddies. You just don't. I just have to, but if I learn some skills, I get a little better at hitting the ball. I get a little better at picking the ball up on a ground ball instead of letting it go under my glove. I'll have more fun. My friends will have more fun. I'm still never going to try out for the Yankees, but we can still have fun.
I like that. Which kind of path do you want to go down, Neal? Do you want to talk about like basic skills and then like how to build a character?
No, I think starting with basic skills, I think is probably the best, because I think this conversation works really well for people that just don't do it. Because I will admit, like, I don't necessarily have an issue with voices. I have an issue with doing them for very long. I'll just bail. I'll be like, here's a fun little sample of what this individual sound like. Hope you hold on to it, because I'm probably not going to do it again. And then we'll go into a more of, and then they said, just because that's where that's where I'm at right now, kind of with voices. And yeah, my particular style is more of just being really, really good at connecting pieces on the fly. The amount that I don't actually know that's going on that I then connect while it's happening, that would shock people. Like that's why that screen's really there, to prove that there's nothing behind it. And I don't want them to know that. But
so what I'd say about that, about like the consistency of the voice, is it's just practice and repetition. That's all it is. The analogy that's coming to my mind is like cooking, right? Like, can you dice an onion and like get perfect like 1/4-inch cubes of onion pieces every single time? You can, if you practice and you do, like 500 onions, and eventually you're just doing it automatically because your muscle memory knows how to do it. And if you look at the recipe, it's like, oh, I don't need them that big. I don't need them that small. I actually want them a little bigger. You adjust and you make them a little bigger, and it's fine. If you don't practice it, yeah, of course, you're going to have trouble keeping consistency. It's just practice. That's all it is. It's just practicing doing it, and the more you do it, the more in touch you get with the muscles that are involved in doing it, and the more in touch you get with your personal process for doing it, and the easier it'll be to repeat. But again, as long as you're having fun and your players are having fun, like, don't beat yourself up if it isn't fun for you to try to repeat a voice. If they meet guard number 7 and 3 weeks later, guard number 7 comes around again, if I'm doing an audiobook, I'll have recorded a little snippet of guard number 7. I'll have dropped it in a folder. I'll be like, oh, it's guard number 7. I got to listen. Okay, listen to guard number 7. That's who he was. Come back, do a pickup, get guard number 7. I'm not stopping the table. I'm not stopping the flow to be like, hang on, guys, let me dig through my phone to find this vocal sample of this NPC that you last interacted with 5 months ago, and so I can match who it was 5 months. I'm not doing that, and they wouldn't care, right? Like, that would just stop the fun of the game.
The analogy you used earlier, or like just to really like codify it, is the idea of when anyone looks to, let's just use Critical Role, because that is kind of like, they all do voice acting all the time and have for like 20 years. Like the collective amount of voice acting is just astronomical. That's the major leagues. And so when you sit at your home table, you're just playing in the park with your friends. And like, that's such a good analogy that I've never put the two together. Or just like, it's just a pickup game of basketball at the park. You're not in the NBA, and that's totally okay. And you can just have fun.
Yeah.
But then also to segue it, speaking of cooking, how about we just cook? How would you cook up a brand new NPC to bring to your table?
Right on. So to get into this, to just sort of get into the specifics, there's no one answer of like, here's how you do it, but there is a general guideline that I think really matters and is really important. And no matter what your process winds up being, if you lean on this sort of set of principles for making a character, it's going to be more exciting. It's going to be more memorable for you and your players, and everybody will be having more fun. And my hook into thinking about this is in the audiobook world, we have this saying that we kick around, and sometimes we hear it from our coaches, and we're like, oh God, I hate that you're telling me that. And it's this: don't make the voice the choice. And what I mean by that is the things that go into a character aren't just the voice. If you make a voice without making a character, it's not interesting, It's not memorable. It's not fun. And I'll give a little. Do you want me to give you a demonstration?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's say there's this guy who's, I don't know, like one of these people who's like a young teen, super smart, low social skills, picked on, bullied. Nobody respects him for his smarts. He feels left out of the group, and he's got a big chip on his shoulder about it. You're right. This stock character in a lot of places. So like he might sort of be like this, and like, now you're coming to me. Now you're coming to me to fix the problem. The machine that you need to work isn't working. And like, now you're coming to me. And all those times you laughed at me, and all those times you pointed at me and didn't invite me to your parties and didn't want to talk to me. But now that you need me, you're talking to me. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, maybe I can fix your machine and maybe I can't, but, what's in it for me, huh? So like that kind of guy. Now, if I do everything mechanically with my musculature that I was doing before, but I don't put any character in it, listen to what happens. That would just sort of be like this. I'm doing all the same things muscularly. I'm pinching my voice, like my nose is pinching. I'm throwing my voice up nasally. It's all the same. But now if I try to live out this character and like now you're talking to me and all those times you bullied me and pointed at me and laughed at me, but now you want me to help you out. I don't think I want to do it.
It sounds like you're just reading the script, right? There's not like a person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not a person there. It's not fun. It's not interesting. It's not memorable. It's none of those things. And if I do the character without a lot of the voice, he can still be interesting and fun, right? Oh, now you're talking to me, huh? All those times you pointed and laughed at me and you didn't invite me to your parties and like you made me sit alone at the lunchroom, but now you need me, huh? Now like there's a broken thing and you can't go on in your adventure unless you fix the broken thing. But now I get to sit with you because I can do a thing you can't do. You know what? Maybe I will and maybe I won't. Right? You see what I mean? Like, he's interesting. He's memorable. I wasn't really doing a voice. And I could put them together if you want me to. I could put them together and like maybe it's even more fun. But like, if I don't have that character, then it doesn't matter if I'm doing the voice. So that's what that thing with like, don't make the voice the choice means. It's like everything that makes a character rich and interesting isn't really the voice. It's really other stuff.
Yeah. The relationships, the motivations, the emotions. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I meant about coming in at step 15 of the process. Like you listen to the guys on Critical Role and you listen to their characters and they're amazing. It's easy to confuse the amazingness of the characters with the vocal dexterity that they're doing. The vocal dexterity that they're doing fuels the characters and makes them powerful and interesting, sure. But at its heart, it's not the vocal dexterity that makes a character great. It's all that other stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of like, lifting the veil, because you think from a listener's perspective or a viewer's perspective, your first introduction typically to that character is the voice. So then for you, you're experiencing the voice as the first thing. But what I'm realizing in this moment is, but then you listen to them talk about that character and it's just reams, it feels like there's reams of backstory hanging out behind it. And then, you're kind of putting these two together in my brain at the same time of like, well, then of course you're so confident about the character voice because you're so confident about the character and who they are, like to their core. Like you have the motivations, you have the experiences, but it also makes me think of like, and I always try and equate back to like, what's universal design? Like what are the aspects of this that are just beneficial for the process in general? And it's having good motivations for your NPCs, even if you're not doing voices. Right. Because like, that's what makes a meaningful character. It's like, if you know what their motivation is, then like, no matter what the players ask you or want to do, you can just look back to that. If it's, I just want money as an NPC, well, that's how I'll operate. And then if I have worked that into the voice, well, then again, that's just how I'll operate the voice. Is like, I'm always going, am I doing it as a grift? Am I doing it, am I doing it legitimately? But the end goal is just more money. Well, then I can always look back to that.
Yeah. And the more specific that you get with why they want more money, the more interesting it'll be, right? Because there's the guy who wants more money because his inner life is his inner life is utter bereft. He doesn't have any self-worth other than the big piles of gold around him. Then there's the guy who wants money because, he's the only one left in his family who can work, right? Like maybe his parents are too old. His partner maybe, horse fell over, broke their leg. They can't go out and tend the fields. The only thing he's got is his sword and his shield from back in the days when he worked the city watch. So he heard the rumor that there was like this old abandoned castle out in the mountains. He's going to join the group going to explore it because he needs the cash. And like that guy, his inner life is going to be really different than the other guy. And the more specific you are about it, the more specific and interesting your character will be. And I think the easier it will be to feel like you can have consistency in the voice. The more you know what's going on in that character's mind and with their motivations, the more comfortable you're going to be playing them. You'll be less worried about like, oh, did I pitch this voice up an extra couple of notes from last game session? You won't care about that as much because it'll feel like the same guy to you. And if it feels like the same guy to you, it'll feel like the same guy to your players.
So I guess that's kind of my, like that next layer question, for guard number 7, great analogy. For guard number 7, it is what it is. And we're all okay that, like you said, 5 months down the road, guard number 7 does not sound like guard number 7 now sounds like guard number 8, and we're all okay with it.
Yeah.
But the idea that is a good, I guess a decent example. Like if we're playing through Ravenloft and you have Strahd, getting a little wildly inconsistent with Strahd, that's probably a little different. So for an NPC that you're aware that like is for sure going to come up multiple times, what are some of the like extra steps that you go through for something like that? Like either a big bad or I guess I've never said it this way, or a big good, like an NPC that hangs out with the party.
Yeah. And the reason I'm pausing is because that's also kind of jumping in 10 steps down the process.
Okay.
I will have for all of my repeating characters, I'll have some sort of hook or something that I've kind of connected the character to. That once I start doing the hook, I can sort of slide into the character. But you have to find that hook. So I think what I want to do is lay out, when I was a very young actor, I took a class with a teacher who had a great way of talking about making a character. And she said, to make a character, you really have to you got to think about 3 things: their mode of speech, their mode of movement, and their mode of thought. And kind of what we're talking about is you can get a little too obsessed with mode of speech trying to create these D&D characters and miss mode of movement and especially mode of thought. And that's what you were talking about, Derek, when you were talking about, motivations and backstories and all that. Like that all informs the mode of thought, your point of view, how you see the world, how you feel about the things in it. What does it want out of life? What do you like? What do you hate? All that stuff. Like the professional, if you want to make a character the way the pros do, you play around with those 3 things. How does this person talk? How does this person move? How does this person think? And you let your imagination feed back in on itself, where something you're experimenting with your vocal musculature might feed back into how this person thinks. And how this person thinks might start to influence how they move, and how they move might start to influence how they talk. And like it all starts to build on each other. So let me give you, is it okay if I walk you guys through it, for instance?
Please do. Yeah.
Fantastic. So let's start just with vocal musculature, right? So let's say you've decided, guard number 8, perhaps, you just jut your jaw forward. Like just stick your lower jaw forward. Both of you do it right now. Just do it like this.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah. And then just start to talk. And yeah. And sort of see, like,
guard
when I
number
talk
9.
this way, how do I feel? What sort of guy talks this way? And of course, this might be different for everybody. Like, I'm sitting here, I'm talking like this, and I'm thinking this guy, I feel my IQ just dropped maybe like 30 points. I'm not dumb, but I'm pretty simple and straightforward. Yeah, I think I'm a simple, straightforward, honest guy. You get a high deception roll, you can probably talk your way past me. But I also feel like this guy's kind of loyal. Like, now what I'm doing is I'm coming up with adjectives that go with his line of thinking. I'm straightforward, I'm loyal, And I also think I'm kind of direct. If you're irritating me, I'm just going to tell you you're irritating me. The bard starts in on their flim-flammery, and I'll just be like, hey, I don't care for that kind of talk. All right, so that's who this guy is. So, Derrick, why don't you do it? Why don't you stick out your jaw and just start talking and see if your imagination picks up on then how you might think and feel about things.
Yeah, I think I feel like instead of trying to talk out my problems, I meet my problems with a fist. That's how I feel. I also feel like I'm kind of direct, and I don't really take anyone's nonsense. And maybe I'm a little self-conscious as well. And that's why I'm so angry.
Yeah. You see, look at just what jutting out your jaw did. What a sweet character this could wind up being.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe.
He's the tavern brawler who secretly has a heart of glass, and he feels everything so strongly, and but he doesn't like talking about it, so he punches. This is so cute. Neal, what about you? Stick out your jaw and just start talking.
So the reason I'm a guard is because I'm not running. I'm staying here. It just the idea of that jut. There's something about it. Once my mouth,
stick with it because you were talking about consistency. Stick with it.
So I feel a little heavier now, and I'm not moving. That's why I'm guarding. I'm not going over there. And if you're not on the list, you're not going in. It's that simple.
Yeah. So you see how just doing that and sticking with it, your imagination starts to pick up. Right, and notice how you were connecting first not to your mode of thought, but to your mode of movement. Mm-hmm. Right? It sounds like his mode of movement is pretty sedentary. I'm just staying right here. Right? But also that also seemed like it kicked into a bit of a mode of thought of stubbornness, unwilling to budge. Right, you ain't on the list, you ain't getting it. I don't care. Right, right. So even just talking for 5 seconds, that character started to develop. Right? Just doing one thing. Let's do another one. Let's do, just keep your teeth closed when you talk. Now, don't hurt yourself. Don't bite down so hard your teeth are going to crack.
No TMJ.
But just tighten it down.
I feel like that was directed at me.
No, it was directed at me. It was directed at me because I did it. I can feel all the muscles in the back of my jaw starting to tighten up, and I don't like it. So, but I'm just going to relax a little bit, but I'm going to keep my teeth closed when I talk. And when I do this, how do I feel? Well, I'll be honest, I feel fairly judgmental. I feel like I would be judging everyone and everything that I see, mostly because I feel incredibly judged myself. I don't like myself, and I distract how much I don't like myself by judging everyone around me. I also suspect at the end of the day, when everyone is left, I just drink myself into a stupor to manage my deep self-loathing.
Jeez, yeah.
So that's what happens to me when I clench my jaw like that. Neal, what about you? Just keep your teeth closed and talk and see what happens.
Super stressed. Don't like it. It's stressing me out the whole time. Super stressed. Don't like this. Don't like this at all. I want to leave. The other guy, he's sticking around. I'm leaving right now. This makes me feel like I feel when I'm stressed out. So I don't like this at all. I really want to leave.
But couldn't that also be a really fun character? Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah. The other thing I thought was like a lisp. I don't know why.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, great. That's why it's called imagination. Yeah. There's no right answers to how to do this. If this leads you to want to start talking like this a little bit, then that's the way it is. And I could see this guy being really nervous and be like, hey, maybe you use this guy for the servant or the clerk for the bigger bad guy up the chain who's like, I've been given orders from the bad guys to get this adventuring party out of the hall, but I can't get the adventuring party out of the hall. They have swords and wizards, and what am I going to do? Right? You can play that guy.
That guy also gets a wand of wonder. Just saying.
Derrick, what about you? Put your teeth together and talk.
When I talk like this, I feel like everything must be precisely in its own place. And when people are touching my things, it infuriates me. And I can't understand why everyone is in the storehouse moving things around. It's got to be just so. Otherwise, I will lose it.
Yeah. What a great example, right? Now, when you started this, you weren't thinking I got to make a control freak. You were just thinking, I'm a guy who keeps his teeth closed, and that fed your imagination into Control Freak. And because we aren't doing video for the audience to see, but Derek, I could see like your shoulders were coming up and your hands were coming in close. Like you're trying to hold yourself together and everything else together. And that's motive movement, right? The more you let your body go and move and play, that will help that flow of imagination connect everything around. If you watch like behind the scenes footage of voice actors doing their things, we are hugely physically expressive behind this mic, even though what we're doing is not being picked up on a camera, because we know that the more we move physically, the more what we're doing gets into the voice.
So luckily I know a little bit into the behind the scenes of this when it comes to animation. There's so many times that the animators will take the video recording of the voice actors and just start animating because it's natural. Like that's the expression that the voice actor had when saying the lines. And then those expressions come out in the actual just drawn animation because it's, that's still 1-to-1 of like exactly what the person was expressing. Yeah. The other thing I think is you're not limited in that same way when you're at a table. You're limited to the physical space that you're playing in.
Right.
But you're not limited to the way I am now. I can't just go wander off and continue to be heard by the microphone that's, a few inches from my face. But if I'm at my table, I can do whatever I want. I can move to it. I can move to an individual player. I can stand up.
Yeah. If you're in a really crowded game store, maybe you can't get up and start running around the space, but you can certainly like move in your chair and move around and do things. And not only should you not be afraid to do that, although I understand like some people can be a little shy about that, but the more you engage your body physically, the more it will help that feedback in your imagination, where one thing will start bridging to another, which will lead to another, which will lead to another. And you guys saw it took you just a couple of seconds to start to find the foundation of some pretty interesting characters just by letting your body go and your imagination go. And you can lead with the body.
Yeah.
The way, I did that little exercise. We were just leading with a little vocal manipulation of some kind, but you could lead with, there's a thing called a psychological gesture, which is a motion that a character does that kind of expresses who they are and how they think. And that can be a way into a character, right? Like, let's say you're playing, let's say one of the NPCs is like the spoiled princess. You could play around until you for me, she might start with just a little like flick of the wrist, like she's dismissing a servant, right? And I might just start doing this. The audience can't see on the camera, but I'm literally just doing like a little backwards flip of my wrist, like get away from me. And I just start doing this. And how does this make me want to talk? Well, it sort of makes me do this. And like I'm flipping my voice as I'm flipping my hand. And now, so when the characters come and talk to me and they're trying to get information about like the plots that my father is running, I can be like, I don't know anything about my father and his plots. I sit around and I'm in my pretty dresses and that's what I care about. And if you think I'm going to turn my father in to you and have my gravy train come to an end, you have another thought coming. And that was just like my wrist flicking around, right? Led to that. So what about Neal? What do you think? Let's say you've got an NPC who's like the hired muscle from the Thieves Guild, right? The good aligned party has been trying to cut down crime in the city. They're investigating the Thieves Guild. And the muscle has been brought in to talk to them. What's a gesture you think that the hired muscle guy might do?
I was literally trying to see if I have a knife in my office, which is completely is unnecessary, but at the same time could feel relatively. So this is the thing I was actually gonna ask, and then I'll do it. But the thing I was gonna ask is like, do you ever layer in like physical items as well to like set that tone for yourself?
Well, I don't, but if you wanted to, yeah, sure. What anything that feeds your imagination. There's no rule.
Yeah, it was just a thought that comes to mind. So the thing I think of is just that slow. Well, sorry, I got to break it. We're here. We're doing it.
Okay.
Just that slow, methodical, just carving something.
Cool. Because it's the knife that might carve into the players. So start doing that. Start carving that wood. Just start doing it and start talking. See where that gesture of carving with your knife leads your voice and leads your thought.
I'll set the scene too, because now it's in
Sure.
my head. But so the idea, everyone at the table is now in an interrogation room. You've been trapped
Yeah.
by the Thieves Guild. You're
Love
there.
it.
I imagine now getting up and just walking around.
Yeah.
Oh, so, mistakes are made. That's okay. We can solve that problem.
Did you hear Derrick? Did you hear as he was doing that, like he was saying we can solve the problem, but what I was hearing as his subtext was, I'll kill you guys.
Yeah,
No
it was kind of smooth and
No
snaky.
problem. It was
you know?
a threat.
Yeah.
Oh, believe
Yeah.
me, the next move was stab the table in front of one of them.
Yeah. And notice, like, you didn't start this by thinking, how will I intimidate them?
No.
You started it just physically moving your hand like you were carving, and you let that feed your imagination, and you let your voice come from your imagination. And we all heard this very spooky character start to get created.
I like that guy.
So Derrick, let's say you're going to be the boss of the Thieves Guild. You're going to be boss of Thieves Guild, probably like a mastermind rogue or something like that. A very careful planner, right? He's got the webs and the plans and the plots and all of that. What do you think a gesture might be for him? What do you think he might do physically? And it doesn't have to be literal. Like, it could be something weird that the character would never do, but that makes you think of that character for whatever reason.
Yeah, if I'm playing like the mastermind and they finally have an audience with him, something like that, I would probably have him in like a nice, plush swiveling chair. And it's probably like, up in a high rise, and he's looking out over the city. And then when he hears them enter, he just swivels his chair around and says,
So it might be hard to do in front of the mic.
Yeah.
So you might have to keep it small, but just slowly swivel your body around. If that's his gesture.
Right. I have a
just
spinny chair, so I
swiveling-
can do it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And just go slow and see how just start doing it and let that feed your imagination and your thought and just start talking.
You are the adventurers
Keep spinning.
I've heard so much about. Please come in, take a seat, make yourselves comfortable.
Yeah, great. So, Neal, what were you hearing in that character?
The kind of person that's super confident. Like, for me, I think of, if these players attack, it's not going to work. So literally the magic item I made in my head right now that's a chair of displacement. Like, instead of a cloak of displacement, like, you've made your chair like it's lined with like displacer beast fur. And so, like, if someone were to attack you, like, it's not going to hit.
Right. What a great example of having your imagination get fed.
Yeah. Well, or just like this sounds like the kind of person that has 1,000 contingencies in this room. You're in his room. You're in his room. And so there's 1,000 or just like, I mean, we don't have to be as ridiculous as a pool of sharks with laser beams on their heads, but
It could be a trapdoor with a gelatinous cube or something,
Yeah.
no, what you do is if you ever want to really mess with your players, you use the third dimension, because players tend to not think in the third dimension. So when they drop into the trapped area, then you drop a gelatinous cube on top of them.
Yeah.
And then they're terrified of the ceiling for the rest of this game.
Yeah, well, you'd better be ready for a dungeon crawl that consists entirely of, I walk another 10 feet and I take my stick and I poke the ceiling. And I walk another 10 feet and I take my stick
your
and I
10-foot
poke the
pole
ceiling.
is just...
So notice, like, when Derrick was like just swiveling, how that brought him to that feeling of power and control. And no matter what you do, it's not going to matter to me. I can get out of the way. I can avoid it. I have so much more power here than you do. And that just came from swiveling around in your chair and talking and letting your imagination work unconsciously to deepen the character. Right. And that's another critical piece of this, is if you just don't do anything and you stay in your head and you try to plan it all out, you're not going to get there. Imagination isn't a conscious process. Imagination's an unconscious process. So you just start doing something to feed it and you go wherever it takes you. Right? Like Neal, you weren't planning to come up with a magic item based off of what Derrick was doing. It
No.
just came into your head. Right? That's the way imagination works. And that's the way creating characters works too. It's an imaginative process. You just start somewhere and let it build until you find it.
Yeah, I'm thinking this whole time to like trying to like really lock in the idea of like, don't make the voice the choice, because I think about like maybe that, and it's probably going to be the thing was holding me back the most, is that I'm so focused on the idea that I want this to be perfectly consistent, if that makes sense. That, like when I start that voice, I'm like, oh, okay, this doesn't sound perfect. Okay, so it's not like I'm getting a bunch of, well, unless they're all just holding on to this horrible complaint and I don't know about it. But as far as I'm aware, I haven't been getting a bunch of complaints about my DM.
Yeah.
But the idea that like, I know like in my head, that's a big part of it, is I'm like, oh, okay, this is kind of falling apart at the seams here. I'm going to step back and then kind of move into, like I said, then they say.
Yeah. And if you are connected to who that character is and how they think and how they move, you're going to stay close enough, like within a lane of what that vocal performance is. And it might not be completely like if you were recording it and played it one after another, you might feel like, oh, that's not 100% consistent. But the truth is, if it's the same person in their mode of thought, if it's their same psychology, if they have the same points of view about things, your players aren't going to get confused. They're going to know who is who.
The other thing that comes to mind is like, I'm not the same 100% of the time. You know, when I answer the phone, and depending on who I'm answering the phone for, depending on why and which all speaks back to the idea of, you know, the other factors of why you're having this conversation as that NPC, and that dictating how you're using the voice. I mean, that's fun fact. That's what we're all doing every day, is depending on who you're talking to and like why you're talking to them, you'll change your voice. Like when I'm at work and doing customer service, it's certainly not the same as, you know, as when I'm at home telling the kids they need to do their laundry again. Like the tone is markedly different, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I want to give you guys one more movement tool, which is center of gravity. You can sort of place a character's center, like where they feel is the center of their body. And you can also get a little into like how they would move, how they would walk, what sort of rhythm they would have. If you put those two things together, very often your imagination can start spinning out a character. So like if let's say I give somebody, I don't know, like a big beer belly. I feel like the center of this guy is right down here at his belly button. It's just big there. And I'm thinking he probably walks sort of side to side a little bit. You sort of feel his belly swinging around from side to side. So what kind of guy is this? Well, this guy, I'm thinking, he sounds a lot like your guard who doesn't like to move a lot. That's what's going on. I think this guy's probably, this guy's in his middle age. Everything hurts when I move, so I don't like to move a lot. So, maybe I might be, God, you know what this would be? This would be a really infuriating shopkeeper. You've come in and, oh yeah, I run the magic potion store. What is it you want? With the healing potions. Healing potions are all the way over there. All right, give me a minute. Gonna get up out of the chair. Okay. Right. All I was doing was giving myself a big beer belly and a little waddle, and led me to the rest of it. Derrick, let's say you're playing a character. Let's put the center of gravity in this character's brain, like their forehead. That's where they live in the world, is their forehead. And when they're looking at the world, it's like forehead first. And how do you think that person might walk?
Forehead first.
Yeah.
I mean,
don't think about it. Just
it seems like the obvious, but like maybe their neck's kind of sticking out. And maybe they're very cautious, and that's kind of why I have to observe.
Start talking in the first person instead of the third.
Yes, I have to look around every corner, look over every fence.
Oh,
maybe actually I'm a nosy neighbor. That's why I'm kind of like this. I'm always peeking through the curtains.
And it looks like the way you're moving is very sort of jittery and side to side, right? Like I see that head sort of bobbing and shifting around.
Yeah, if that's that's kind of the center, like I feel like that's that's kind of my point of view.
Yeah, keep talking. Don't talk as him.
Sorry.
Talk as that head moving around.
Yeah. Well, interesting. Yeah, I've seen some things. Just the other week I saw some people come through here in the middle of the night, wagging super loud. They were doing something in that old abandoned shack, but I don't know what. And maybe you should check that out.
Yeah. And you heard Neal, how his voice sort of went up a little bit in pitch. It sort of went up here, but you weren't planning to do that. It just sort of did. And we all heard that, maybe I saw something, maybe I didn't. I'm the next thing I'm expecting this guy to ask for is a little coin in exchange for the information.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what a great example of, like, that character didn't have a huge vocal change from who you normally are, but it was clearly a different, interesting, distinct person.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And do you feel like you could repeat that person?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Because you had that hook into it, which was your forehead and sort of peeking around corners. And as soon as you started to peek around corners with your forehead, your imagination fed everything else in. And that's what I meant by a hook, right? You find something that you can do that brings the rest of the character along for the ride. You won't know what the hook is until you start exploring and finding it. But once you find it, you can just go back to the hook. So Neal, let's try a center for you. Let's say you've got a guy whose center is, let's have it be his shoulders. His shoulders. He sort of enters the room with his shoulders, and everything he does, the shoulders move. Just start doing that, where your shoulders are leading everything you do, and just start talking as this person and see what happens.
I don't know if you've heard how amazing I am. Oh, I've got super strong Ron Burgundy vibes right now. I don't know if you heard, but I just did over 1,000. Yes, Paladin, of course. Here I am. Welcome. Oh, am I adventuring with you? That's going to be a chore. We'll do it. They'll sing tales, many tales of
That's
our
fantastic.
exploits. There will be lies. I mean, no, they won't.
That's fantastic. Do you feel like you could repeat that person?
Oh yeah, that person's awful, but I could do it again.
Yeah. Just moving that shoulder and led you to such a specific, like, Ron Burgundy. What a specific character choice. And you're just putting those two together. Like, you wouldn't have to worry about repeating that guy.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially,
right?
And then that's something I've also thought about is in that moment, that's probably what I would write down. Obviously, like, if I'm really trying to hone in on this character, and this is just my thought process right now.
Yeah.
It's like, if I was really trying to hone in on that character, no, I'm not going to say Ron Burgundy at the table. If that's what they pick up, like, it's 100%. Probably going to come through. But, like, that's what I'm writing down. Paladin, Paul, whatever. Tall Paul. I literally had a buddy who's
Love
dad.
it.
That's what we called him. So Tall Paul the Paladin. And then we just write down Ron Burgundy. And then anytime I look back at that, I can think, oh yeah, I should Ron Burgundy.
Maybe Ron Burgundy, but also shoulders. Because that's how you found Ron Burgundy, was shoulders forward.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Perfect.
Yeah. The only other thing, because we've talked about going vocal manipulation first, when we sort of clenched our jaw, we jutted our jaw forward. We've talked about physical movement first. Often when we're doing a character, especially if it's one of these, like, big NPCs that's got to be recurring through the campaign, that NPC's life and backstory will get fleshed out, right? Especially like if it's a published adventure. You're reading it, you're like, oh, I see who this character is and what it's about. And you have to go from their mode of thought into those things, which is fine too. You just start talking in first person as that person and how they see things, and notice where that takes you imaginatively with your body, where that takes you imaginatively with your voice. The example that's coming to my mind, we're getting near the end, running Icewind Dale, the Rime of the Frost Maiden. And we've been doing it for years. There's a NPC that it tags along with the party. There's this NPC wizard who it's written in the adventure. Comes from a rich wizarding family. She's middle-aged, and she's a necromancer, and she's kind of out for her own power. That's what's written in. So when I started thinking about this woman, I wanted to run with the idea that, if you're rich and you're middle-aged, you are so into the, like, I don't need to care about anybody else anymore. Like, I am who I am, and I'm comfortable in myself. that just leads to this smoothness in my voice as I voice her. Or just that I like to just lean back, and I don't need to fight for anyone's attention or approval. I've given up fighting for approval because I'm a necromancer. I'm never getting approval. So I've just decided I don't care. And you can see that I'm kind of leaning back in my chair, and I might imagine my hips as being a little wide. I think she leads from her hips, which lets her settle down even more, right? So that's how I found her, and that's the voice I give her. And it came from starting with mode of thought and just talking through her mode of thought into a voice. Does that make sense? So you brought up Strahd. What's Strahd's mode of thought? How does Strahd see the world? Neal, we'll start with you. How does Strahd see the world?
So early Strahd versus late Strahd, like that. And so that's an interesting thing too, well, no, but that's, I like just thinking in being able to change the voice, because now that we're not looking at the voice as the choice, we're looking at the mode and the thoughts behind it. Because initial Strahd, just laughably dismissive of, I mean, I don't even know if it's wasting my time. It's just so interesting.
And you did this thing with your hand when you said laughingly dismissive. Keep doing it as you talk, Strahd.
Listen, it's fine. I don't mind. I'm bored. I can't leave. So you being a bother is totally fine. But I'll be back. Play with the minions. And then he just leaves.
Yeah, no, Derrick, did that sound like a specific character to you?
Not any that come. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a huge vocal shift, but did you hear his point of view clearly?
Yes, sorry, it does sound like a specific. I thought you meant like, what character does that sound like to you? And I was like, I don't know.
Oh, no. What I meant was, yeah, like, do you understand how this character thinks?
100%, yeah.
Yeah, and if this character came back again, you wouldn't even have to introduce him. You hear a voice from across the room. Oh, welcome back, you. You'd know who it was. Yeah, and it wasn't a huge vocal shift, but you were very specific about his mode of thought, and you added in the physicality of the hand waving people away. It helped you create the character. Derrick, what about you? So you are a shield guardian. The party wizard has acquired a shield guardian, and the shield guardian is very black and white, right? Protect the person you're connected to. Nobody else matters. So that's your primary mode of thought. I protect you. I don't care about anybody else. Just start talking while you're thinking that way.
Listen, this isn't part of what I was paid to do. I'm just following around Wimbledon the Wise. That's kind of that's part of my contract. That's what I'm going to do. I don't have time to go and save this.
Now, what are you doing? What are you doing with your body physically?
I'm folding my arms.
You're folding your arms, you're putting up your shoulders, and you're sort of developing this almost New York kind of like, thing, right? That's where your imagination led you, right? So when you're doing that NPC, that's all you need to do. You cross your arms, you put up your shoulders, you start, and then you've got that character. Do you feel like that's somebody you could repeat?
Easily.
Yeah. So that's what I mean about like, don't aim for step 15. Start here. Start with, if you already know their mode of thought, start with that. Start with some movement, whether it's a gesture or their center of gravity, or start with a vocal choice and just let those three things, mode of thought, mode of speech, mode of movement, play into each other in your imagination.
I love it. As far as like homework for listeners to kind of get into doing this kind of stuff themselves, is there a specific one of those that you would have them start with if they're trying to do this themselves at home?
Oh, sure. I don't know if this answers your question exactly, but there's certainly an easy hack to get into this, which is to think about animals. Because if you think about an animal, almost automatically you start bringing all three of these things in. Like, Derrick, if you've decided that the captain of the guard is a gorilla, you've just made that decision. He's going to be a gorilla, right? You're already doing something with your physicality. You put your shoulders up, you put your arms out, sort of with your elbows forward, and just start talking like this guy. He's a gorilla, so just start talking.
I don't want any nonsense on this block. I've already cleared out all the rabble, all of the protesters. Look, I can't change the fact that the king is upping taxes, and I'm not happy about it either, but a job is a job.
Great. What a great, like, just a couple sentences in, just coming up with this guy, it sounds like we've already learned a lot about his mode of thought, right? Like a big alpha gorilla, he doesn't mind busting heads and throwing things around, but what he'd really like to do is sit on his butt and eat some oranges, right? Like, that's what, like, his happy place is not doing anything. But if he's got to do something, you don't mind doing it the hard way. Right? And that's all you did was just think about a gorilla. And you found the voice, and you found the physicality, and you found the mode of thought in what? Like 2.5 seconds? It was all there. Neal, let's say you've decided that the shopkeeper, the blacksmith, say, is a turtle. How would he talk? How would he move? And just start talking. Remember, you don't want to think about it consciously because imagination is unconscious. Just start being a turtle and see where it takes you.
I hear that. Well, I have to describe, I think, what's in my head sometimes when you do this, because it gets me where I want to go. But like, I hear the bell ring, like that classic, like the door opens and ring, and they all see a turtle working at the forge. And then they wait, and they wait a little longer.
Uh-huh.
I'll be with you. And eventually he turns around. What can I do for you?
Yeah, I need a suit of plate mail, and like I need it by tomorrow. Is that something you think you could do for me?
If you fit in this one, yes.
Great. So what is this guy's mode of thinking? Well, mode of thought. Like if you had some adjectives to describe how this guy sees the world, what would they be?
Methodical. Like he's gonna do well. So like eventually, I really quickly got to. The slow isn't just because he's a turtle. The slow is because he wants to do everything right. And so in his mind, when you ask that question, that's absurd. I'm not going to do that because then you're going to walk around with something with my name on it. That's a rush job. Absolutely not.
Fantastic.
If you fit in that thing, you can walk right out of the store with it. But if you think I'm making you something custom with my name on it, no, it's not happening.
So look at how quickly you found that.
Yeah.
The thing was, you have to not give up on it.
Yeah.
Right? As soon as you dropped out of turtle and started talking as Neal, he went away. But when you stayed as turtle, just all of that stuff started to flow in. It's amazing how quick our imaginations go.
The animal thing is interesting because, Derek, when you were doing the nosy neighbor, you screamed Tengu to me the whole time you were looking around. It was just very bird-like, the motions you were doing.
I felt a bird too. Yeah.
Also, I felt like the two options were you either going to ask for money or definitely tell these players so much stuff they don't care about.
Right. Like I've seen everything. Guys, I've seen everything that happens on this street. Yeah.
Like, listen, I'm sick of the dog next door as well. Okay.
Yeah. So that is like such a good, quick and dirty way of activating all three. I don't know if that answered the question that you were saying, but it's like a real quick flash way of having all three of those things start to go and start to play off each other.
I like it a lot.
Speaking of quick things, I was going to bring this up earlier, Derek, when you were doing the thing, when you were clenching your jaw, you started leading to something that was almost, it is not British exactly, but it's almost there. And I wanted to mention before we wrapped up, since I'm on the subject now of quick and dirty tricks, a lot of people, at least in my experience, a lot of D&D players sort of worry about accents. Like, oh, I want to give this guy a British accent, but I'm not very good at it. I want to give this guy a Russian accent, but I'm not very good at it. I want to give this guy an Australian accent, but I'm not very good at it. If you're doing an accent for a professional job where people are paying you money, you got to work to be good at the accent. If you're just playing around the table, right? Like going back to this idea that like you're not trying out for the New York Yankees, you're picking a play-up game. Right, you're just trying to have fun. Quickest way into an accent approximation is something that we call placement, which is where the accent feels like it lives in your mouth or your head or in space. And the quickest way to find placement is listen to somebody speaking in the accent and listen to their filler sounds. The uhs and the ers and the ums, and replicate the filler sound. So in French, people who speak French is this is the thing that when they're trying to think of what to say. Which sort of lives. I feel this living sort of under my nose here. It's almost like the center of my voice is just under my nose here. And if all I do is I talk thinking about putting the voice. Now this is not a French accent. This is a very bad French accent. If I auditioned for a job with this, they'd be like, "You don't know how to do a French accent." But does it sound good enough that if I did this at the home D&D table, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, that guy's French," right? Knowing none of the like phoneme switches or consonant changes or anything like that, I can get close. So that's my accent tip. Not for professionals. Right? If you're in a movie and you need to have a French accent, you got to study. But if you're just playing at the table, you're doing that pickup game of basketball, you're hitting a ball around the park, find the sound and just talk with it there. It gets you like 50% of the way to the accent.
Yeah. I've never heard anyone suggest that, but I like it a lot.
The ones that I will say, because you actually just brought these back to my mind for homework, is go find. There's 2 videos that just popped in my mind specifically about Tom Hardy. So when he was finding the voice for Bane and when he was finding the voice for Bronson. Now, Bronson's an interesting one because he actually had calls with Charles Bronson while Bronson was still like incarcerated before he had passed. And so he actually was talking with him. So like, it's a much easier way to get a hold of an accent or a voice, when you're just talking directly with that voice. But with the Bane, he had found a guy that was referred to as the Gypsy King, and he just watched video after video after video of him. And then, took that and then made his Bane voice based on that. And so those are both really interesting interviews to watch someone do that.
Yeah. And if you watch, as I know that interview you're talking about with the Gypsy King, if you watch that video, he's not just talking about the voice. He talks about how that guy thinks. He talks about his mode of thought. And you can see where Bane came as a direct line from that way of thinking.
Yeah. And I think the same with Bronson and I think the Bronson one's going to be a little bit more subtle, because I don't think it's as direct, but now that we're having the conversation, I can see it because he starts to get to the core of who Bronson is in the discussions he has with him. Not just what he sounds like, but like who he is as a man, because there are pieces of like advice that Bronson gives Tom Hardy that like he holds today. So like if you're that deep, you're that deep into that conversation, like you're truly figuring out who that man is and then, embodying that through voice. But also, like you said, carrying that character forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I had so many homework ideas. I don't know how much your listeners want to put up with.
We can throw links in the show notes and kind of do more explanation there if you just have like a blurb for what you're suggesting.
Oh, sure. Fantastic. So I was thinking about like some audiobooks to listen to. And I have sort of a spectrum of suggestions where on the far end, there's a guy who is incredibly good. I mean, all of these are incredibly good at making clear, distinct, memorable, exciting characters. And the spectrum is going to be how much are they changing their voice when they do it. So on the far end of the spectrum is a guy named Joel Frumkin, who is a wizard at creating characters with wildly different voices, wildly different modes of movement, and wildly different modes of thought. Pull it back a little. There's a lit RPG series, He Who Fights with Monsters. I don't remember the name of the narrator right off the top of my head, but he also creates these dazzlingly memorable characters without nearly as much vocal change. But they're still really compelling characters. And if you listen, you can hear how these characters move, you can hear how they think, you can hear all of that, even if the vocal acrobatics he's doing aren't as extreme as what Joel Frumkin does. And then continuing that spectrum, there's a guy named Scott Brick who's been narrating audiobooks since there were audiobooks. And he is like, he's not a man. He's like a man, you've heard like the phrase of he's a man of 1,000 voices. Scott Brick is like a man of 3 voices. Like he doesn't really do, like if you listen to his characters, you don't hear an awful lot physical differentiation. But You're never confused about who's talking. You're never confused about what they want. You're never confused about how they think or how they feel about anything. He's so good at mode of thought. He's so good at understanding those characters psychologically. So he's not a man of 1,000 voices. He does almost nothing with vocal manipulation. But he's so clear about who those characters are psychologically, how they think, how they feel, their mode of thought, that you're never lost in the scene. You're drawn into the inner lives of all of these people. Like, you'll have a scene of like 7 guys all talking, and if you wrote down their vocal characteristics, you'd just be writing down the same words for them. But you know, you're never confused as to who's talking. You always know who they are. Like, you are in those people's minds. So, like, listening to those 3 sets of audiobooks and really listening for how those narrators are creating those characters, you'll get a wide range of possibilities, but I think you'd also see how much mode of thought matters for making characters. Movie recommendation: the Dungeons and Dragons movie. One of the things that made it so successful was how well each of those characters embodied the way those archetypes think. Right? Like, the paladin was so, like, he really found that, man. I own my righteousness. I don't have to put my righteousness onto you, but I'm not going to sacrifice my righteousness for anything. And Chris Pine found that, like, universal experience of sitting at the D&D table where you tried the plan always fails. Now you have to come up with something on the fly. That's where he lived. Like, that's where that character lived all the time. And that's why he was so successful at both making veteran D&D players felt seen and also making not veteran D&D players understand what the thing is really about. Mm-hmm. And every one of those actors was so clear about their character's mode of thought. It's what made that movie charming, and it's what made it work.
It was very good. I was tentatively excited for it, and yeah, it was very good.
Yeah.
You also mentioned the International Dialects of English Archive.
Yeah, there's a great website. It's at dialectsarchive.com. It's a decades-long collection of various accents and dialects of English speakers, whether they native English speakers or foreign speakers speaking English as a second language. And you can search by country, and it's a great way of listening to native speakers of an accent. So if you wanted to make a character have an accent, like you want to make your dwarves Scottish, or you might want to make your dwarves Russian, or you want to make your elves Brazilian, or whatever, you can go and listen to native speakers and mimic them. And however successful a mimic you are, if you find that placement, you find that, like, where are their thinking sounds, and you just let your voice sit wherever those thinking sounds sit, you'll get close enough for a home game. That wouldn't be the end of your work if you were doing it professionally. But when I'm doing an accent professionally, that is often my first stop, is dialectsarchive.com. I'm going to go deeper than just where's the placement. I'm going to go into a lot of nitty-gritty stuff you don't need for a D&D home game. But that's a really good first stop for learning an accent.
Awesome. For me, the only other thing that I've really enjoyed is Eric Singer, ERIK. Eric Singer has done a bunch of YouTube videos for Wired or with Wired, where he talks about specific actors who are doing accents in movies, and he kind of like grades how good he thinks their accents are. But he also has a few videos about like regional accents in the US, etc. And I think he kind of breaks down like the specific sounds that make that accent what it is, like the consonant sounds, the vowel sounds. Mm-hmm. And I've used that a few times for different characters I'm voicing, and it's always fun. He's an accents and dialects coach, so.
Yeah, there's a lot of great accent resources online.
So I will take a bunch of our concepts and I will wrap it in childhood nostalgia to kind of close out our homework section, because basically what is a unabridged reading of an audiobook that was turned into a movie about animals is the childhood joy of mine called Milo and Otis. And I, for the longest time, just didn't know it was a guy. Just didn't know it was one guy.
Oh.
Fooled me as a kid. But then it was later that I realized I was like, that's just a guy reading a book. He just read the book, Milo and Otis, out loud. And then someone decided to put animals, live action animals while he's reading. Basically, that's what the movie is. It's just a guy doing every voice for every animal that you interact with through the entire movie. And yeah, Milo and Otis.
That's cool. But remember, you don't need to achieve that level of like vocal differentiation to have fun at the table, right? Like you don't need to be the sort of person who sounds like a whole completely of like, oh my God, I didn't know that was Neal talking. Like it's okay to still sound like Neal no matter what you do. If you just play around with your voice a little bit, you connect into that mode of thought, you find a way of moving physically, and you allow your imagination to run, you're going to create an effective, memorable character. Even if you're not creating that illusion of a different person.
Yeah. And it's a great example of doing what you mentioned for just like an hour and a half straight of just, hey, this is a chicken. What do you think a chicken would sound like? Oh, hey, here's a fox. What do you think a fox would sound like? And it just does that for an hour and a half. So that's fantastic. And then our final question is, where can people go on this World Wide Web to follow everything you're doing?
Oh, they can find me on Instagram at Max Zener. They can find me on Facebook as Maxwell Zener. Those are probably the easiest ways to stay in touch with the various things that I'm doing.
Perfect. And we will have links to all that in the show notes. And if nothing else, man, I feel like I'm better at voices. We'll see what my players think before too long.
I'm so glad. This is so much fun, guys. Thanks for having me on.
A huge, huge thank you to Maxwell for coming on, spending a bunch of time with us. Like I said, making me genuinely better at character voices at my table and any table I go to. Definitely go to the show notes and check out all the awesome stuff that Maxwell is doing. And of course, if you have other tips and tricks on how you've been making your character voices better at your table, you can always email us at dungeonmastersblock@gmail.com. And of course, if you head over to Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice, you can always leave us a rating and review because it'll make us smile. And of course, if you head over to social media, good on you. And don't be there too long. Take a break. Go outside. Meet some people. Say hi. Engage with the world. Not through your phone. But after you're done doing that, you can always find us at DMS_block. That's at DMsBlock. And of course, as always, we're a proud member of the Block Party Podcast Network, where you can check out other shows like Dungeons and Dragons and Daughter, The Bad Venture Club, and more. But as always, thank you for listening to the Dungeon Master's Block, the place where we come to talk about the Dungeon Master, the most important person in the game, the only person capable of playing gods, killing characters, and lowering the ego scores of everyone else at the table. I'm DM Neal. Good night, good luck, and keep on dungeon mastering.
It's not inspiration, it's not wisdom, and it's bad advice.
Every time they don't use their character voice, they take a D6 worth of damage. They'll use their character voice one way or another.
Goodbye.